Hi, and welcome to Syrup Shots Gaming. I'm Tyler, and with me is Chris.
What's up?
How goes it, Big Papa?
Oh, it goes. It goes. Life is busy.
Always.
Time is a flat circle.
Is that because
At
of
least
baby, COVID, or other?
all of the above.
All of the above. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Each week we try to gather around here just talking about what we've been playing and different things in the video game news stratosphere and our different takes on them. So today what we're going to do is go over Acquisition Fever because it's caught on like Donkey Kong. And everyone's losing their quarters. So, but before we get into that, what have you been playing?
I have been playing Persona 5 Strikers.
Ooh, tell me about it.
It's my first Musou that, well, that's not true. I tried to play, I think, Dynasty Warriors back in the day. It's the first Musou that I have played and enjoyed.
Ah, okay.
And I think it's just largely because I really love Persona 5. And this still has all of the trappings of a Persona 5 game, just with, instead of fighting, a handful of, monsters at a time, there's a whole bunch of them.
I
But
gotcha.
a lot of the same things that you would care about in a Persona game are still going to be at play, such as, weaknesses to various different types of elements. You still are collecting Persona as Joker, so there's still that component to the game. And
But is there relationships?
the social sim piece is what is definitely missing.
Mm, that's gonna upset a lot of people.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's not a core game. It is technically a spin-off. So
That is true. That is true. But you're
and
enjoying it?
I like it. The story seems pretty good. I mean, I like the characters of Persona 5, and it feels like another opportunity to kind of hang out with them. And the game is fun.
Very nice. Very nice. For me, there's two games I've been playing. One I will not spend much time on because I plan on putting together a full video review on it, which is Pokemon
Okay.
Legends Arceus. Arceus. It's
Mm.
Arceus. That's the official name because if it wasn't Arceus, then you would have, and it was Arceus, you'd have an Arse phone in the game.
Oh man, that's funny.
So it's definitely Arceus. Long story short, absolutely love it. Is it perfect? No, but is it one of the freshest breaths of air in Pokemon in a long time? 1000%. But what I want to talk about right now is I finally got my hands on my PS5. And,
Oh,
and it is, oof, it is sexy. It is. Well, look,
do you like that DualSense controller?
I do like the
Yeah.
DualSense controller.
Yeah.
What I don't like was the setup getting all my games on there and getting all my save data transferred.
Okay.
Case in point, I re-downloaded Avengers.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
more specifically, I have the disc copy of Avengers for the PS4.
Sure. Yeah. Some games, the save transfer capability sucked. Um, I thankfully had the digital version of Avengers, so I didn't have to worry about that.
Makes it a lot easier in
Um,
that case, yeah.
the one that really sucked was Final Fantasy VII Remake. I wanted the free upgrade.
Uh-huh.
As someone who actually owned the game, I didn't, just get it from like PlayStation Plus or something. But I actually had to go install the PS4 version back on my PS4 game, upload the save to the cloud, and then I could use my save on my PS5.
I had to do that with Avengers. I had
Yeah.
to download the PS4 version, download the PS5 version while they're both on there, upload the save file from the PS4 version, and pray to all the gods that it didn't get. I had to boot my PlayStation to safe mode to clear out the cache to make Avengers run on the
That
PS5.
sucks.
Yeah,
That sucks.
It is
Yeah. So the thing that to add further complaint to my Final Fantasy VII remake story, if you recall, the PS4 version of the game comes with two discs: the game disc and the data disc. The data disc you threw in there, you installed the game onto the PS4 hard drive, and
and you
then you
wipe your
never
hands.
you never needed it again, right? Well, because I had actually deleted the game from my PS4 because I had finished it, right? I didn't know I was actually going to go back and play it. I had to go find where the heck I put that game disc the data
Oh,
disc, right?
this
So
is
that
my
was that was fun. I will say that they have improved the process, but it's only with later games that they did. So if you go play Jedi Fallen Order or Ghost of Tsushima and you have a PS4 save, it's literally,
just
hey,
load it up.
let's just go grab it. You don't have to do anything special. Just
Uh,
if you bought
I was gonna say, I bet you Mark Cerny is working day and night just to figure out how to emulate what Xbox Series X is doing with their backwards compatibility in terms of whatever version you have the best version.
now supposedly Mark Cerny's actually working with Haven Studios as a consultant right now.
Haven
That's
Studio, Haven Studio. Refresh my
that's
memory.
the Jade Raymond studio up in Montreal.
Okay,
You're supposed to be working on some game that has live service elements. She's originally from, Ubisoft, and she's a producer, so she doesn't, you know, not that there's anything necessarily wrong with that, but she's not necessarily the creative on the team. She's just the head of the studio, right? She's the
hmm,
one that makes sure that they stay on track and, you know,
yeah.
their pipeline is working efficiently. But because of that, you don't can't really base off of any of the games that she's worked on before that this is going to be like that. I mean, yeah, she's has experience like Rainbow Six and Assassin's Creed, and the new game might be like that because that's probably who she's got talent from.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's probably pretty easy to get talent from Ubisoft these days with all of the issues and transgressions that whole company has had. I mean, it's not to the state of like what Activision Blizzard was dealing with. However, it's
Are you
still pretty
sure?
bad.
Are you sure
It's
about
still pretty
that?
bad.
Because
It's still. I mean, at least from the way that it was treated around in the news, it seemed as if a Blizzard King, Activision Blizzard King was worse. But who knows, right? It is a different country, right?
yeah.
Ubisoft is largely in France and in Canada, and they have other studios around the world too, but they don't really have an American presence. So we're probably not going to hear it necessarily in American news.
Did you see the breaking news from Jason Schreier today on Ubisoft?
Mm-mm. Was it
Uh,
about NFTs and
yep. Where they leaked the internal message boards where someone at Ubisoft uh, anonymously told Jason Schreier this actually put more faith in him as Ubisoft because he saw everyone come together for the first time on the message boards with one common voice saying no, no NFTs.
good,
Yes.
good? I
Uh,
mean,
and then
it's a trend in gaming that I mean, I don't think we as gamers should want.
I have yet to hear a good reason why it's worthwhile. I have yet to hear a compelling reason for it besides artificial rarity.
Sure, it's a way to create scarcity, and that the only positive argument you ever hear from people is like, "Well, it's a way for you to like own a digital piece of content." I was like, "Yeah, but what does ownership mean of a digital piece of content if other people can enjoy it? They just don't technically own it."
Right. I mean, the closest I've heard is it's a way to benefit the creators where every time it's changed ownership, they get a piece of the profits. That
Yeah.
is the closest I've heard. But does that offset all of the harm to the environment with processing those blockchains? Does it
Yeah.
it is it worthwhile? Because I mean, You show the thing on TV, I'm going to take a screenshot of it. Boom, I've got it too.
It's true. Yeah.
So I'm just not personally. My fear is they're going to take this as the new skins, where if you want to really show off, like, hey, I was first day raid at Destiny 7 or whatever it is,
I mean,
I've
they
got
can do that. And honestly, they make so much money for microtransactions these days. And I mean, and I use they as like a plural they, as in like every video game developer, publisher, platform holders making buku bucks from games that are laden with microtransactions. There's a lot of money in that.
and we've had this conversation before where I'm not against microtransactions as long as they're done ethically. There's a big difference between, I want to buy a skin versus I'm going to buy a loot box.
Sure, sure. No, because that's gambling.
Yeah,
Right, and we've agreed before, we don't need to necessarily go into detail here today, but pay to win is no bueno, right?
no es bueno. Um,
But
but let's go back to the me playing a PlayStation 5 here, and actually, because I don't want to be all dour on it, because I do enjoy it. I am actually
hmm
playing Final Fantasy 7 Remake. I had,
have you?
yeah,
Okay.
I started it before, but put it down in the past because I knew that I was going to get a PS5 eventually, and
hmm
boy, that 60 FPS. Oh, it is just like butter. It is.
Yeah.
Oh, my eyes.
Performance mode, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
Well,
So
I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say it's amazing how much it's changed. At least like my perspective, because that's how I play games these days. I never played with the performance modes in the past, right? And I would be like a defender of, well, 30 FPS is just fine. And now with the
Wrong.
we we have the technology, right? And it does make a huge difference. It really does.
1000%.
Especially if it's a stable frame rate. I mean, if you can hit 60 and not hold it, then probably don't bother, right?
Right.
But if you can hold it at a steady 60 frames, which most games on the new hardware, from what I understand, I mean, they can definitely do it. We're not really pushing these boxes to their limit yet.
Right. And I did look into the eyes of God. I downloaded Destiny 2 on my PS5, and I loaded up the Crucible,
Huh?
where its performance mode on the PS5, 1080p, 120 frames a second.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Especially for an
Oh,
online game, right?
yes, yes. It is. It
Yeah.
it was gorgeous. I got my
Yeah.
butt kicked. Don't get me wrong, but it is absolutely gorgeous, and
Yeah.
I look forward to jumping into the Witch Queen when it comes out.
Sure. A Sony game now.
It is. I'm going to. I think I'm going to buy it on. Oh, that's a whole other thing here where I am really contemplating right now because I found a mod for the DualSense controller
Oh, really? Okay.
where no soldering is required. All it requires is screwdrivers.
Are you gonna put paddles on it?
I am seriously thinking about putting paddles on it. Because why it doesn't have paddles, or why they didn't release back paddles like they did for the DualShock 4 is
I don't know why they didn't. That whole accessory, because that accessory they made for the DualShock 4
amazing.
came, well, it came so late in the life cycle, number one. And then when they released what the DualSense was actually going to be, I'm like, well, you planning on making an accessory for this one too?
Well, and what's what's the
Because they
worst?
haven't.
I I'm gonna
And
preface this:
I don't think you can use the what is it called for the PS4? Is it
the
the
DualShock
back
4, the back button.
back button? Is that what it's called?
I
They
think
didn't. That's not compatible with the new DualSense controller.
it is not, and for reasons beyond my grasp, you can't use a DualShock 4 on a PS5 for a PS5 game.
No, you cannot. You can. This is the funny part. You can use it to play PS4 games on your PS5.
You can use it to play PS4 games on your PS5. You can also use it to remote play from an iPad or a PC your
Yeah,
PS5
yeah.
games.
No, it's a Sony restriction.
Yeah,
They
it
they they want you using a DualSense controller for the new games.
No, no, they want us to buy an additional DualSense
Oh, yeah,
controller. That it's
sure.
it's it's money.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. It's not that the hardware is clearly capable of it.
Yeah. And
Um,
and they could say, "Well, we just want to make sure that everyone is having the best experience." The best experience for me is back buttons. The adaptive triggers, though very
mhm,
nice, don't do dilly squat for me if I don't have those back buttons where I can do both analog sticks and jump at the same time. And I'm not a
sure.
bumper jumper. I do not have the dexterity for that. I work a 9 to 5 working on a computer. You can't do that.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we shall see how things go. I mean, I love the DualSense controller. I think it's a great controller for single player games. I don't know if multiplayer games or people that play largely multiplayer on their PlayStation are really going to care about the haptics. Maybe 3D audio can give you benefit, but that has nothing to do with the controller, right?
No.
Um,
The only thing would be just the spatial audio, the 3D audio through the headphone jack, but that's again, that's more processing on on the
and then
PlayStation side.
from like the pressure sensitive triggers, from what I understand, most people who play like Call of Duty or other multiplayer shooters, like you're probably turning that stuff off for Destiny if it's even there.
I didn't really pay attention that much. I was more paying attention to. I didn't get to play much thus far. I just basically
Okay.
jumped in to kind of try it out. Um, but yeah, I mean, I remember an article. I believe it was. I forget where it was from, but where people playing Fortnite hated it because it slows down their shots.
Yeah.
So
No, it's a problem for competitive play. Is there an argument for making it more realistic feeling? Sure, but I don't know if you really care about that kind of atmosphere when you're
well,
playing
and it's so fun.
playing a multi-platform game like a Fortnite or Destiny or Call of Duty, whatever it is, right? You're playing against people that are on other systems, right, where they're not using stuff like that.
Well, and it's so funny too because you could actually use the adaptive triggers to make it more competitive.
Hmm.
I'm going to use my 8-bit do controller as an example here, okay? So I've got
Sure.
my triggers here, right? Got to press it all the way down to get the full fire, right? If the adaptive triggers adapt it to stop just at a tiny bit, it's less for my finger to travel, faster shots, faster aiming.
Okay. That'd
So,
be interesting. Maybe there'll be a firmware patch in the future where you can adjust that stuff, remap the how the adjustable triggers work. That could be
yeah,
pretty cool.
I think it would have to be on the game side for the most part, but yeah, I would love to see someone really dive
Well,
into that.
it probably would have to be done from both sides. I think they'd have
Yeah,
to open that up to the devs, right? And maybe that's just in the dev kit. But
right. So yeah, that is what I want. I still love my PlayStation 5. I'm gonna play a lot of it. Uh, but those were just kind of some of my initial thoughts with it.
sure, sure.
So let's talk
Well,
about
I'm
something.
excited for you.
Yeah, I'm very
Yeah.
excited. So let's get into something that's not as exciting. The acquisition games. Begun the acquisition war has.
Yeah. It's a content war,
It,
as some people say.
as the kids would say. Yeah,
Yeah.
I it's definitely a content war. So let's just kind of break it down a little bit here. Some of the big things that have happened here. So you had last year Microsoft buying Bethesda. After the year before that or two, they bought Double Fine, uh, where they bought Obsidian.
Hmm.
Was it Double
Oh man,
Fine?
they I don't remember when they bought Double Fine, but yeah, they own Double Fine. That's who makes Psychonauts, right?
That yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then they bought Obsidian, um, which was interesting because that was prior to they were
Bethesda.
already mid yeah, there it was prior to Bethesda, and it was while they were mid development on Outer Worlds, so Outer Worlds wasn't actually even published by Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
It still went everywhere. So, and interesting that you mentioned all these, but with In Exile, Obsidian, and Bethesda Game Studios, Microsoft now has completed the Fallout trifecta and now owns every developer that's ever made a Fallout game.
I want Obsidian to make New Vegas 2. That's what I want.
I mean, they technically
They
can.
technically can.
I don't know if they will. And that's, I mean, while we're talking about acquisitions, that is something that one of the positives that can potentially come out of this, and that's one of the things a lot of people have been kind of pointing to, and it's possible. We'll see what Microsoft does with some of the acquisitions that they've made. You didn't mention Activision Blizzard King yet, did you?
I hadn't got to that. So let's kind of rally finish this up here real
Yeah,
fast here.
finish it up. Yep.
So the other big ones is the big one this year, the $70 billion jackpot, Activision Blizzard being bought by Microsoft. This still cracks me up there. Where oh, why am I blanking on his name? Head of Microsoft. Oh,
Oh, the CEO of Microsoft?
of no of Xbox.
Oh, Phil Spencer?
Phil Spencer, where he's like, "Hey, we're gonna really assess our relationship with
I
them after
remember
all
that.
this, and by assessing the
That
relationship,
dude knew when he made that statement. I mean, hindsight's 2020, so we can look at that now. But he knew
oh
that they
yeah,
were going to buy that company and that they
oh
were in
yeah,
really close talks to finishing the
oh
deal. They
yeah,
just couldn't say anything yet.
1,000%, 1,000. He knew, and that was a
Hmm.
great move on his behalf. Great move.
Yeah.
Um, and now we have on Sony side that after they bought oh, I am blanking on company names tonight.
Oh, so I could probably help you out. So last year they went on an acquisition spree themselves. They acquired Housemark, the developer of
Housemark.
Returnal.
Yep.
They acquired Nix's software to help them with their PC porting because, as Jim Ryan himself has said, PlayStation is going, quote, multi-platform, whatever that means. We just saw God of War release on PC this last month.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the Uncharted Thieves Collection, which is also coming to PC at some point.
MLB The Show coming to the Nintendo Switch, being crossplay with Xbox
And
and
it's
Sony.
day one on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So yeah, some crazy stuff there. They also bought Blue Point, which is the
Mm-hmm.
remake super studio that's done remakes like Shadow of the Colossus, and most recently Demon Souls for PS5.
Yeah. The one I was thinking of was and this was a while back now, but Insomniac. I think the
Oh yeah,
Insomniac purchase is really what kind of started the fire of all this.
maybe. I mean, at that point, Microsoft was already acquiring other studios.
Yeah.
But it was I mean, up until the acquisition of Bungie, that I think actually was Sony's biggest acquisition deal, and I mean, it's a huge difference. I think they spent. I'm not even gonna throw a number out there. I don't have it off the top of
I
my
think it
head,
was
but it was
3.6 billion.
for Bungie. That one
Yeah.
I know. The acquisition for Insomniac was something million. It was not a
Yeah.
$1 billion
Right.
acquisition. It's paid off for sure. I
Oh yeah.
mean, we've seen Spider-Man,
Ratchet
Spider-Man
and
Miles
Clank.
Morales, Ratchet Clank. They're making a Wolverine game now. I mean, they're arguably one of Sony's most productive studios that they have.
They can't stop. They won't stop. They don't even know how to stop.
Yep. Other acquisitions, I still haven't gotten through them all. They bought Fire Sprite, and they also bought uh, Valkyrie, some Vanguard. It's a studio that's helping God of War, the Sony Santa Monica with God of War.
Okay.
Their support studio. And Fire Sprite is oddly enough, they're a studio in Liverpool that's ran by a bunch of ex Sony Liverpool devs. So the old Wipeout um,
Oh
team.
geez.
So there's a history there. I'm sure that the recently announced Horizon VR game is probably the big reason why Sony purchased
That makes
them.
sense. That makes sense. So huge list of acquisitions going on left and right here, really changing the landscape of the game. Um,
That's a lot, you know. I mean, and not to leave Nintendo out in the cold, but I think they also didn't they buy the what's the name of that studio that makes the Luigi games?
uh, that's not level 5, is it?
No, it's like Dark Moon or something like that, isn't it? Or High Moon. I
Uh,
can Google this.
I thought High Moon was part of.
Luigi's Mansion. Who makes those games?
Wasn't High Moon the one that made the Transformers games?
Yeah, then it's not them because that's an Activision Blizzard King studio,
Yep.
right? Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They are next level games is actually who made that. So I was
Next
way
level.
off.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Who in the past did a lot of their sports games, ironically.
So Nintendo, not so much involved in the acquisition race.
No.
Recently, their Nintendo, I think the president of Nintendo actually said that they want their developers to have the quote unquote Nintendo DNA, which I get. You know, they're all coming. All of the companies are coming from different places. Um, in this content war, this acquisition war. Um, I mean, while we're talking about it, but think part of the driver for a lot of this is intellectual property, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
why we call it a content war.
Yep.
And arguably, I think you could say that Nintendo holds probably the most valuable video game IP in the business, and they
Well,
probably don't necessarily feel that they need to. Not only their problems with the fact that they're not as huge as
so
Sony
so
or
fun fact.
Microsoft.
So fun
Hmm.
fact. Nintendo actually co-owns the most valuable IP in media. Period.
Oh, Pokemon.
Yep. It's
Yeah,
it's worth more than Disney. It's worth more than Mickey and all of them. It's worth more than the
I believe it.
yeah, anything you can think of, it's worth more than.
The Pokemon Company
But it's not
with
worth
Nintendo.
but it's not worth spending the extra dev time to make the world look good.
You know what's crazy? I know we're totally tangenting here, but
Yeah.
this is what happens when you have basically a fireside chat between two nerds.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, isn't it crazy that Game Freak has basically been the only developer that's ever made a mainline Pokemon game? That's insane.
It's not insane to me, and I will tell you why.
Why?
Because they sell like hotcakes, and keeping it with just the small team at Game Freak, they don't have to spend extra money, and they get all the money from the games plus all the money from the real moneymaker, merchandising.
That's true.
It is a uh, financial decision through and through. I
Yeah.
mean, if they really wanted to, just off the cuff here, they could partner with Monolith Soft like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild did, and create a gorgeous world running at 30 frames a second for the new Pokemon
Fair.
game, and
They
it
could.
would have been. I hate saying the word next level, but it would have been next level. It would have
I
been.
mean, we are both Xenoblade fans, and
Oh yeah,
clearly Monolith Soft knows how to make open world video games. They are critical for making Breath of the Wild feel as open as it was.
yep. So, uh, but that is the end of our tangent here for Pokemon right now.
Yeah.
So, lots of acquisitions going around. Nintendo not so much in it right now. I believe their president, his exact words, or the paraphrasing here was, "We're not saying no to acquisitions. It's just not a big game plan for us right now. We will make acquisitions when it makes sense for us, which means we ain't playing your game. Bye bye."
Sure. Sure.
Uh,
No, I think there's going to be varying degrees, right? And we've largely seen it work that way. I mean, when Nintendo acquires a company, it's because they have a long-standing relationship with them. And I mean, they're already making Nintendo games, so it probably doesn't even make big news anyways.
right,
And
and
historically, I mean, that's how PlayStation's done their acquisitions
Well,
until recently.
and it's kind of funny too with Nintendo. Some of their biggest games aren't actually developed by Nintendo owned companies. Retro Studios is not owned by Nintendo.
Interesting.
Neither is Game Freak.
Well, yeah, I knew that one actually.
Yeah.
But
So,
the Pokemon is that's so weird. Like you said, it's a co-owned IP.
mhm.
That's why you end up having Nintendo Directs and Pokemon Directs.
Yep. Where they announce a sleep app and a toothbrushing game for your phone. But
Mm-hmm.
again, tangent. Acquisitions. So we're seeing a lot of consolidation of the IPs for these different companies. And you're right, IPs
Right.
are one of the biggest reasons why we're seeing these acquisitions. Expertise is another. The big reason for Sony buying Destiny and Bungie is their expertise with games as service games and shooters, because that is not something that Sony is strong at right now, and they want to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm.
that is what's profitable right now. Is you have to.
So what's crazy is, and I mean, seeing how we're talking, business, and I'm going to bring up the boring financials, but I don't remember if it was the most recent results of the quarter or if it was from last year, but multi or microtransactions and DLC make up like 30% of profits for PlayStation. That's insane considering they don't make games with them themselves.
Yep.
That's just them getting a cut from someone buying, Fortnite Battle Pass on a PlayStation.
Yeah.
Or-
It's
So, I mean, why not own a company that does it, right? I
yeah, cut out the
mean,
middleman.
and Destiny has been one of the longest standing live service game makers. Um, I mean, Destiny somehow survived Bungie
Acquisition.
breaking out of the contract out of with Activision, right?
Hmm. And then getting into a golden age of storytelling within Destiny.
You would know more about that than me, admittedly.
Yeah, it's been a golden age. Their storytelling
That's good.
has been they've been great about laying the lore out for kind of the hidden things that people want to search for, kind of like people find the hidden meanings in the Dark Souls games, but also have
Sure.
a compelling
I
action-packed
mean,
main story
to,
campaign.
to be fair, if you're going to get any story out of Dark Souls, you pretty much have to do that.
Yeah, 1,000%. Or just watch
And that's
YouTube
okay.
videos.
I mean, that's okay, right? I mean, some people are really into the lore in video games, and
Yeah,
that's totally fine.
yeah, and having that framework that Destiny has in terms of games as service, they have been really smart about how they do that. They, you can go to anywhere in the game for free. You know, have never have to pay anything to go to the planets. To have access to the missions to get certain items, that's going to be a season pass, but it's not I think of that more as like their season passes are all story based, so I kind of think of that like downloadable content, like an extra chapter to the game. And
Right.
then their individual uh, microtransactions are all cosmetic. There's nothing that improves gameplay, gives you currency, anything of that nature. They're all skins for the guns for the players, or little emotes or little icons to show from their ghost. And
Yeah.
and that is key. If you're gonna have individual microtransactions like that, it cannot impact gameplay.
Sure. Sure. Totally on board with that. Yeah. And I agree with what you said about it being about talent. So Bungie is, I think, like 900 plus. There's a lot of devs that are over there, man. They're huge.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, they only currently make one game. Currently, that's important too,
They're working on a
because
second. They're not working on a second, but they haven't released
we don't know
details.
what it is yet. However, there's no way. Well, I'll get to that point. That's my second point. First point, that they $1.2 billion in the deal is supposedly set aside for retention. So not only did Sony buy Bungie, but they wanted to make sure that people were going to stick around because they didn't want to spend all of this money and have to hire more people to replace people because they just got a crap ton of money.
And you're actually leading into, because I feel like we're going to definitely be playing point counterpoint on the acquisition game here of is it good or is it bad. I'm going to lead to one of the pro acquisition moves, which is being better for the actual developers. And what I mean by that is developers right now are basically having to find the money and make the game. They have to make
Yeah.
concessions because of financial decisions. If someone were to take that over and that's not a concern for them anymore, that would free them up and give them the capital to do what they want to do.
No, I think there's an argument to be made that both the acquisition of Activision Blizzard King and Bungie were good for the developers, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, less
The
sexual harassment on the Microsoft side.
Yeah. And then from Bungie's standpoint, I mean, it's a heck of a deal. One, they're not actually going to be in the umbrella of PlayStation Studios. They're actually going to be alongside it under Sony Interactive Entertainment, which means they're effectively independent for the most
Mm-hmm.
part. I'm sure that there's probably some checks and balances up at the top from like, yeah, you got to keep making us them, you keep giving us money, you can do whatever the heck you want. But, they're still going to release all of their games everywhere. And they can actually technically be a publisher. So we could see them, if they find some dev that's out there that's an indie studio, they could technically fund a game under the Bungie publisher umbrella.
Yep.
But the other point I was going to make that I started to make before, while I was tangenting, was this rumored second game that's supposedly a hero shooter that Bungie's making. I wouldn't be surprised that Sony execs saw that game, and that was another push for them to seal the deal.
I would actually be surprised if Sony saw it. And the only reason I say that is the financial backer for that game is Tencent.
I thought that it was NetEase, actually,
I'm
because I know that NetEase made a huge um
I'm gonna look it up real
investment
fast.
into Bungie, and with with Sony buying them, I'm sure NetEase got a swell return of investment on that deal.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh, you're right.
as
You're right.
anybody,
You're right. It is NetEase. My
I
apologies.
mean, to be truthful, NetEase, Tencent, I mean, they're both Chinese companies with questionable
Aren't they? Aren't
practices and
is it? And I could be completely wrong with this, but aren't one or both of them actually owned by the Chinese government?
uh technically no,
But in
but
practice,
yeah, so I mean, while we're talking about mergers and acquisitions, and we're just free flowing, going
yep.
wherever. Tencent really scares me from a M&A perspective because they are the second largest video game company by revenue, um, which is insane. And it's largely because they've invested into a lot of big companies. They own Riot outright. That's League of Legends.
Hmm.
They own like 40% of Epic Games, which is crazy.
They have like
Um,
a 5 to 10% in Ubisoft.
and so they're invested in a lot of different companies. They don't make a lot of video games. I think they have like a mobile game development studio. Might have a few of them, to be truthful. A lot of their money comes from WeChat, and WeChat is like the social media company of China because
Facebook is
it's a
banned.
lot because it's allowed on Chinese internet, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, and there's I wish I'd actually I forgot to look this up, but there's a really good Last Week Tonight episode that John Oliver did talking about WeChat. And that really opened my eyes to it because WeChat isn't just the Facebook of China, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's how you book a train, it's how you send money to your friends or family, it's how you check in with your friends and family. It's all of our social media and like payment apps and like tourism apps all rolled into one. It's and they have no competition. It's a monopoly, a
Hmm.
government sanctioned monopoly in China with a billion user base. It's wild.
It is. It is very wild. So yeah, Tencent also scares me. And part of my that scare comes from Amazon, actually.
Okay.
So my big concern is, especially like in the beginning, whenever these acquisitions, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do these nice things. We're gonna do these nice things." Amazon does the same thing. They buy something, oh, we're gonna offer it super cheap. In fact,
Oh
they're offering
yeah.
it so cheap, like Game Pass, that it undermines everyone else in the market and everyone else drops out.
Yeah.
And then
And
when there's no competition, start raising prices.
it's true. It's very true. And I mean it's the other thing that's going to be a reality. Right now we've only got the one subscription model for, the Netflix of games, right, which is Game Pass. But
Not technically. I mean, there's PlayStation Now.
it's not really a competitor though. I mean, 25 million user base versus 3 million. It's however, Project Spartacus from PlayStation. I think one of the other reasons why they wanted to go out and get Bungie. So I've lost track of my count of how many reasons I've said at this
Mm-hmm.
point. But another reason is that I bet that after Microsoft sealed the deal with Activision Blizzard King, they probably had some sort of or were trying to work out some sort of deal, probably to get, Call of Duty or maybe some other big shooter on that platform, whatever it is. And this is all hearsay. I have no information.
Right.
Um, but it would not be surprised that also was a contributing factor because I wouldn't be if they put Destiny on Project Spartacus or whatever the real name's actually going to be. That is going to be a way to bring in all of those followers into their new subscription service,
You know
and
what's
they
fun?
can act. What's up?
You know what's funny is up until about a month ago, all of Destiny and all of its DLC was on Game Pass.
And now it's not.
And now it's not. Yeah.
Yep, very true.
But
And I think that's a very strong reality, right? They're not necessarily going, and it's a smart pitch. It really is. The pitch isn't this is the only place to play. It becomes this is the best place to play
hmm
because then you can still make money on the other platforms if they want to buy the game,
and you
right?
can
And if they
and you
want to
can,
continue to buy all the downloadable content, microtransactions, you don't have to take anything away from people.
and you're saving face because you're not gatekeeping by keeping people away from the game.
Yep. And let's face it, live service games need large user bases to be successful. You want to put it on everything.
I think one of the things that's really started to help these games as services really take off is crossplay. I think that has been
Yeah.
the biggest contributor.
It makes a big difference because it makes sure that there is people to play,
Yeah,
right?
you have
Multiplayer games aren't fun if you're sitting and waiting for a game to start up.
that is. I listen to a Twitch streamer, Maximilian Dude, who always talks about the biggest thing that kills a fighting game is lack of community and lack of you know good netcode, rollback netcode.
Yeah.
Because if you can't
Yep.
play it well and you don't have the people to play against, it's dead. Similar principle. If you don't have the people, it's dead.
Yep.
Case in point, Paladin, R.I.P.
Yeah.
So it's. I think we're kind of getting into a point here where these acquisitions are definitely going to have a lot of short term benefits for both the developers and the consumers, but I am really concerned about what the long term is, because yes, you can
Yeah.
say that while while why am I blanking on his name tonight? Head of Microsoft, or Xbox,
Phil Spencer.
Phil
Now,
Spencer. I
you're
know.
technically right because his new job title is Microsoft head of Microsoft Gaming. He's
Yeah,
no longer just the head of Xbox.
yeah. So Phil Spencer. I mean, that's all well and good, but Phil Spencer's there. What happens when Phil Spencer gets replaced?
Yeah.
What happens
That's
in the future where they go, okay, but we want more money? What happens when the honeymoon phase is over and you now have Papa
Oh,
Xbox? Yeah.
that was the point I was going to get at. Oh man, I apologize.
No, you're
It's
good.
it's late. It's a Saturday night. I have a child. I don't always remember things. Now it's in my memory. This is what I was going to say. So the subscription game, right? We all live in the streaming wars right now, right? There's so many different streaming platforms. It's not just Netflix and Hulu. There's HBO Max, there's Peacock and Paramount Plus and all kinds of crazy stuff out there. What has become, kind of painfully obvious about the way that the business works around that is you want to build as much content as possible to keep your user base happy and to encourage more people to come. And then eventually, all that investment leads to price increases. I've been a Netflix subscriber for years. Um, when I first started subscribing to Netflix, I think it was like $8 a month or something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
And you get just see the jump in price we're about to get.
It's coming. It's
Uh,
coming.
no, I just turned on my Netflix yesterday. We don't pay for the 4K package. We just pay for
Hmm.
that 1080p one. It's going up to $15 and some change.
Yeah. So the thing that admittedly does help us is that T-Mobile pays for some of my Netflix subscription.
Yeah, but then you're paying through your T-Mobile bill.
I know. I know. So there is that. But case in point, it's almost doubled over the years. And you know what? You can say that Game Pass is the best deal in gaming right now, but is it going to continue to be? I mean, competition breeds excellence, and that's the fear I think with the consolidation of the gaming industry. Now, admittedly, um, I don't think that Microsoft and Sony want some of these other big players to jump into the gaming space. And we've already got Facebook here, right? They own what, Meta, Oculus, what are they called now? I think it's called
The
Meta.
Meta is the parent company now of Facebook, and they've just called
Okay.
it the Meta Quest.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. So does Oculus as a brand still exist, or is it
I think they are phasing that out.
okay? Okay. Anyways, so I mean, they're already here. Amazon has their kind of trashy Luna service, and Google still technically has Stadia, even though I've heard rumors that that's largely getting phased out, and they're going to license the tech out
Fun
instead of.
fact, fun fact, they've already done that. Do you
Oh,
know?
really?
Do you know who one of the first people they've licensed it out to is?
Oh, it's the cycling company, isn't it? I think I heard about that.
AT&T.
Oh,
With certain
that's
plans,
why.
with certain plans, you can now get Batman the Arkham games streamable.
Oh, okay. That's lame. Ah,
That's AT&T.
okay. And they make smart business decisions over there.
Yeah, like buying DirecTV.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then they bought, Time Warner for was 100 billion or something like that.
Yeah.
Insane amount of money. But to bring it back to video games, right? Right now, and we've largely focused on, Microsoft v Sony, but the reality is the space is more complex than that. I mean, we've mentioned Tencent. They're huge. They're scary.
Hmm.
I do not want to see Tencent buy more companies. They recently bought Back for Blood developer Turtle
Turtle Rock.
Rock.
Yep.
which sucks. I don't want them to own them, but they do.
Who bought the Rocket League developers recently?
So Epic bought them.
So in practice,
I
40%
mean,
Tencent
Epic,
bought.
yeah, yeah. I mean, NetEase owns a significant chunk. Um, so I'm sure that they're a major player in some of Epic's decisions. Um, I almost wonder if the Sony investment, the two investments they've made into Epic, were to help, keep Epic control of the company, and because I mean, 40% of an organization is huge.
Yeah,
Once
that has impact.
well, and it's a publicly traded company. I mean, hostile takeovers are a real thing, and if you can get enough stock, you know, we could see that. That's the danger of
Publicly
you
traded
know,
companies.
of publicly traded companies. So certainly don't want Epic to be taken over by a Chinese national company. That would be awful. Um, but there's a chance. You never know.
Yeah.
And Facebook, or the Meta organization. I mean, they've got their foot in the game, and they've been buying studios, largely VR developers. So it doesn't always make headlines because that's mostly where they're playing. But I mean, if we're in a content war,
Yeah.
who's
Oh,
to stop Facebook from buying a big publisher,
I was trying.
right?
I was trying to remember the other big acquisition recently. 2K just bought Zynga.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
Mm-hmm.
They spent, was it like $12 billion for them or something like
Mm-hmm.
that?
Getting in the mobile space.
Mobile makes money. Um, it's the again, it's the free to play model, right? You want to get people to in the game. You want them to keep coming back, and keep spending money. It's a very much kind of a nickel and dime type strategy, but I mean, there's a ton of people with
I
mobile
mean,
phones out there. I
there's some
mean,
people, and it may be nickel and diming for some people, but it also gets the whales. I
yeah,
cannot.
it
I
does.
mean, there have been stories about how there's some Fire Emblem Heroes players for the mobile game who have spent
Hmm.
millions of dollars by themselves on that game, which is insane to me.
Yeah, yeah. Now, one thing I did want to bring up, since we've been talking about this, and we've been talking about mergers and acquisitions for quite some time. I mean, admittedly, I'm largely a single player game, like a single player gamer, meaning that I think that a lot of these acquisitions are largely geared towards, especially with, I mean, PlayStation straight up said that, they're building out 10 live service games by 2026. Bungie is clearly a core part of that strategy. I think if they're going to buy other developers or publishers in the future, I think that it's probably going to be in line with that strategy. Now, from a Microsoft standpoint, they're largely buying companies to fill their service with content.
Mm-hmm.
And so that could be anything. Game Pass in this situation is the live service.
Yep, 1,000%. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't think that there's really going to be a decline in the single player game, and
No,
my
I'm not saying that there is, right? I what I guess I'm saying is that it doesn't necessarily impact me
mm-hmm.
in so much ways, other than the fact that if Microsoft chooses to, with what they've bought, they can take, because they've bought publishers in Bethesda and in Activision Blizzard King, they can make some of those games exclusive to their platform, like they've done with Starfield. They've already said that.
Yeah.
So I don't think that players, I mean, maybe if the next Fallout comes multi-platform, maybe they have said that they're going to keep bringing Call of Duty everywhere
Uh,
recently.
I have theories on that, and my theory on that is I don't think that they wanted to do that. I think there was enough concern and enough backlash that, to, for publicity's sake, they had to keep that going on other consoles at least for now. I think they had to
Yeah.
put consumers at ease, which would
Well,
then
I
put.
don't I I don't think it's just consumers. So recently what's come out um, is that the Federal Trade Commission is going to be reviewing the deal,
Mhm.
which is not to say unusual, but it hasn't been the recent precedent. Typically, it's handled by the Department of Justice, which basically means, I mean, if unless you've committed a crime, it gets rubber stamped, right? Federal Trade Commission is largely the group that's going to be looking at competition, and they've publicly said that they're looking at what the potential harm could be for consumers. That's why consumers' voice matters in this situation.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I don't know if this is necessarily related, but it could provide some context. But I mean, recently, to add, I guess, fuel to the fire in some respect, it's kind of video game related, but Nvidia's acquisition of ARM failed. It didn't actually go through.
Oh, really?
Yep. So I'm not saying that the purchase of Activision Blizzard King isn't going to go through. I think that honestly,
If
I mean,
Disney buys Fox,
if Disney can buy Fox, which I mean, but prior to the purchase of Fox, there were only 6 major film studios in the entire world, and now there are 5. So if that can go through and be approved, I don't see why Microsoft can't buy Activision Blizzard King. But I do agree with you that they do need to make nice now. And they do have contractual obligations to uphold.
yes.
Wouldn't surprise me that PlayStation has some sort of deal for a Call of Duty for probably the next couple of years. How long that is, we don't know. That's not in the public's purview.
Right. Because I do remember at the beginning of the PS4 era, they made a big ordeal about how they were had an exclusivity with Call of Duty where they would get maps and things
It was
early.
exclusive maps, and and that has continued for a while. I don't know if it's with every game, but um, what's hilarious about it was never full exclusivity. It was for a year. Thing is, Call of Duty is a yearly release. Most COD players are
Just
only playing that new game for a year until the next one comes out.
hmm
So the year of exclusivity was might as well have been for forever for most players.
yeah. Funny fact: when Activision Blizzard was kind of co-owning Destiny, they
Hmm.
had a partnership with Sony as well, where you would have raid or not raids, strikes that had 1 year exclusivity on PlayStation.
And then that and that's where a lot of the kind of I guess some of the humor in this comes in is the fact that Activision Blizzard owns what used to be Sony mascots in Crash Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon from the back in the PlayStation 1 days.
Yep.
And they've traditionally had pretty good relationship with PlayStation, like you were saying, with Call of Duty relationship, where for the whole PS4 generation, they made it seem as if it was a PlayStation game without it actually being a PlayStation game. And the same was true for Destiny in some respect.
hmm Yeah, that was one of the big things that really got the PS4 going. Was it made a lot of those partnerships. So like you said earlier, it's not that it's exclusive to here; it's just the best here.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
and and I think making that consumer friendly face is what really skyrocketed the PS4.
Yeah.
Well, that and the Kinect sunk the Xbox One when it launched.
True, and I mean, admittedly, PlayStation did a really good job of investing in their studios over the lifetime of PS4, and that's how we saw new IP come out of them, like Horizon, which we're getting a sequel here shortly. We got Ghost of Tsushima. We got a Spider-Man game made by Insomniac. I
I
mean,
mean,
there's a lot of great games that PlayStation put out over the PS4. They didn't come early.
Bloodborne, that's a
Yeah,
PlayStation owned prop IP.
yeah, it sure is. Yeah. So it's kind of crazy to think that at some point, From Software could have been, a very exclusive team. I'm sure that, before they got big, PlayStation probably could have acquired. I feel like they're one of those studios that they let get away. I mean, they didn't even bring Demon Souls to the United States. Atlas published Demon Souls
Yeah,
in the United States originally, and PlayStation funded that game in Japan.
it's I do think that there's still some cases of it, but really starting to think they're starting to let it down. Like, this is okay for Japan, but not for America or other countries' releases. I think that that curtain is finally coming down. Like, no, games are games.
Yeah, true. I mean, look at oh geez, what's
Alive,
the
live, alive.
there's no, not Live Alive. What's the live service game where there's an Aloy skin and it looks like Breath of the Wild.
Oh, are you talking about Genshin Impact?
Genshin Impact. That's it.
Huge.
That game is I mean it looks like an anime game, right? But it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's
How
that's actually it's I think it's PlayStation and PC only. And is there a mobile version?
iPhone and Android.
Yeah. So, but it's not on Xbox from what I understand.
No. Now, I have issues with Genshin Impact, uh, mainly because of their microtransactions. They are
Okay.
loot box,
Are they? Okay.
and it gets characters and how they play, so it impacts your gameplay.
That sucks.
Yep, and they don't have options to individually buy characters. There's no like, well, you can do the loot box, or you can pay a little bit more to direct buy. They don't have that option.
Sure. Sure. And I know we haven't talked about Nintendo a lot, but it's one of their biggest IPs these days is Fire Emblem, which is super
Oh,
anime, man.
yep.
So yeah, no, yeah, there's definitely been a change in global tastes, right? There was games that were considered to be, oh, this is too Japanese. It won't sell elsewhere. I don't think that that's really the case anymore.
No, interesting stuff with these acquisitions. So, what I'd like to end on tonight is just a simple question of who do you think's next? Who's the next
Mm.
on the chopping block?
So prediction time.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to separate from dev and publisher because I do think that there will be differences there. Truthfully, from a dev standpoint, let's see. I've got a quick, easy one. I think that Nintendo will buy Mercury Steam. Why?
The
Metroid,
yeah,
Metroid Dread. I mean,
did
they've done two great games for them. What I'm not going to tell you. I mean, they move so slow when it comes to these things. It could be this year. It could be the next 2-3 years for all I know.
I think they're going to get an exclusivity contract, but I don't think they're going to outright buy them. I think they're going to go the retro route with them.
They could. They could.
Uh,
Interesting.
and especially since there's still some questionable aspects because Mercury Steam is also the ones who made that terrible uh, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2.
Yeah, but you know what? They definitely have proven they know how to make a Metroidvania.
Oh, absolutely. Between those and didn't they do Bloodstained as well?
They
Yeah,
did.
yeah. So they definitely
Oh,
know how to do that. And can I just say that this renaissance of Metroidvanias and 2D platformers has just been fantastic.
it is nice. What's interesting is that I don't think you can say it's a retro game anymore.
No, it's a,
I
yeah,
mean, we have new games coming out there, Metroidvanias.
yeah,
It's just a different style. And they're popular.
100%. So yeah, I can see that one being a possibility. Um, for me, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I have others.
Okay, yeah, go for
If
another one.
you Sure. Let's see. From oh geez. Oh, that was my one quick and easy developer one.
Hmm.
Um, from a publisher standpoint, and I don't think it's going to happen necessarily um soon, but I wouldn't be surprised to see an Ubisoft acquisition at some point, just because of how they run their company.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. I could definitely see that. If we're gonna go based on publishers, I've been trying to think of like connecting the dots here. The one that makes most sense to me right now is Capcom by Sony, and
I could see that.
and
So I know a lot of. Yeah, you put your rationale, and I'll comment. Go ahead.
so the biggest connection dot for that for me is Sony's purchase of Evo. They're wanting to invest in the fighting game community,
Oh, yeah. Go
and Street Fighter V, though we had a bumpy start there, Capcom is still the synonymous name with 2D fighters as the king. I mean, if you think back on some of the
Mhm.
classics, the Marvel vs. Capcom games, Capcom vs. SNK, all the Street Fighter games, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike is still considered one of the best fighting games, period.
Yeah.
And I think they could really go hard into that and uh, combine the Capcom Cup with Evo to just make a year-long series of things to make them money and get a new marketing arm of their gaming industry.
No, I think the fighting game connection makes sense. Um, the other things that I think that Sony PlayStation would find attractive is the fact that um, Capcom makes Monster Hunter, and I mean, you very well could make Monster Hunter into a live service style of game. I don't know if it all depends on how and they could. I don't
They
know if
could,
they will, but they could. And it's huge. It's Capcom's best-selling game that they make. It's their
yeah,
best-selling franchise that they make.
yeah.
And they own, Street Fighter, they own Resident Evil, which is the most popular horror franchise in video games. So, I mean, it could make a lot of sense. I don't think that Capcom would be cheap.
I don't think it'd
Um,
be cheap either, but I think if you're trying to play the long game, I think those IP in conjunction with the games and service route they're wanting to go, in conjunction with
yeah,
the fighting game community they're wanting to connect with,
yeah.
I think that's
I
a smart move.
yeah. However, that said, oddly enough, I did do a bit of research. Capcom isn't one of the big three video game companies in Japan besides Sony and Nintendo. Oddly enough, the big three, I will tell you, are Bandai Namco,
Mm-hmm.
Sega, and Square Enix. Capcom is not on that list. So they arguably wouldn't be as expensive as one of those other three, I guess, but they're still probably worth more than $3.6 billion.
Oh no, that's
I
a
wouldn't
that's a double digit one. I think. I think it's like 10 to
I
20.
wouldn't be surprised that they're more expensive than Bethesda. I think we'll look back on that deal. At the time, we thought it was super expensive,
And it's gonna
but
be a steal.
in retrospect, I think that we'll realize, holy crap, Microsoft paid nothing for that,
Yep, I think so
considering what they
too.
got. Considering
Yeah,
what they got. No, I wouldn't be surprised if Capcom were to sell. And the thing is, video games are super big right now. It's a huge money making machine. Um, when Microsoft paid for Activision Blizzard, they paid, I think, like 30% of. Now, what's complicates this is the fact that because of all the stupid crap Activision been doing, and all of the walkouts and the fact that their company, they had, the subsidiaries where their workers were forming unions, um, their stock price had dropped 30%.
yep.
So when I say that they paid 30% above their actual price of their stock, it was to match it before it took the huge dive.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, I don't think that any of these other big publishers are going to. They're, the price is only going to keep going up.
I concur. I think it's gonna get pricier and pricier, and the more and more competition that's gone, it's gonna raise the value of the ones that remain.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing I was going to say is, I mean, I can't help that there is a bit of there's a lot of fanboyism that can happen in this conversation, right? I mean, we've been talking about content war, and I've been kind of keeping a lot of that stuff down. I mean,
Hmm.
when I first heard the news about the ABK purchase, that one hit me in the chest, because like, oh no, there's all that stuff that's gonna be stuck on Microsoft platforms. Um, and I largely play on a PlayStation with my Switch being my second platform of choice. So, you know, uh, we will see what happens. You know, uh, video games are great. They're making a lot of money these days, but it is a business, and I don't think that the acquisition game has ended. And oh, that's what I was going to say. Now I remember my point. I think that because Sony is a smaller company, which is insane to say because they're a
Hmm.
huge company, but they're definitely much smaller than Microsoft. Microsoft's in a league
On,
of of their own,
yeah,
right? I mean, they're the second wealthiest company in the world. I mean, we're talking to compete with the kind of cash that they have, you have to be a big company like, the other tech
Amazon.
giants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which, thank God Amazon doesn't know how to make video games. They've tried.
Yeah, I just hope they don't. I don't. I just hope they don't start looking at Microsoft going, "Oh, you can just buy them."
There's nothing stopping them from doing that,
That.
truthfully. So I do think that we're going to see strategic partnerships going forward for a lot of these companies. Yeah, I think particular Nintendo and Sony, just because they don't have the big paychecks.
Hmm.
Um, Microsoft is probably gonna. I don't know if they'll make another big purchase this year, especially while they're going through, all of the legal work they're gonna have to do. I mean, it's to the point where they have to wait till next year for this deal to close.
I bet you that they have things going in the background with other companies, but
They aren't. They're not gonna announce anything,
no, no,
not for the
no.
time being, right?
They might announce some
So,
smaller things, but
so basically, I think that leaves us with, in 2022, the year of our Lord 2022. I think that we will see Sony buy somebody.
yeah.
Who? I don't know. I don't think it will be Square Enix, because they're basically already getting their cake and eating it too there. Because
Hmm.
from what I understand, the rumor is that Final Fantasy is a PlayStation property these days.
At least when
How
they
they did it,
at least when they
how
first
they
come out, yeah.
FF7 remake is still not on Xbox. It just got ported to PC.
PC, yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, and the other big one is Final Fantasy 14, the MMO RPG, which is bigger than World of Warcraft these days, because basically with Bobby Kotick, they basically ran Blizzard into the ground.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, to the point that that there's question marks around some of those titles that they're not only making now, but potentially into the future. Microsoft hopefully will be able to fix a lot of those problems. But that FF14 is only on PlayStation and PC. So that's another big one if we're talking live service games, right?
Yeah,
I, so Square Enix is, and just from the direct we just watched, they're um, have great relationships with both Nintendo and PlayStation. I don't think that either one of those platform holders is going to make a big deal to buy them. Not to mention the fact that Square is much bigger than video games, apparently.
yeah.
I think that's what causes some of the problem there.
It's true. I'm just looking through a list of developers here. I just want to see if I can think of anyone else that kind of makes sense.
I have one. So I think that Arc System Works, for the same reasons that you said earlier for Capcom, would make sense for PlayStation to acquire, because they went out and bought Evo for a reason.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know what it is yet, but I don't know why you'd want to own a fighting game competition and not make a fighting game.
Well, and if you think about it, a good chunk of the Evo roster are Arc System Work games now. Dragon Ball Fighter Z, the Guilty Gear
Hmm.
series, the Under Night in Birth, uh, the what was the name of the other series? The Blaze Blue series,
Hmm.
Blaze Blue Cross Tag Team Battle, all Arc System Work games.
Yeah.
Um,
Another potential possibility, and there's a lot of who knows, but with the Discovery Plus merger of Warner Brothers, maybe we could see them offload one of the only companies, devs that works under Warner Brothers games that doesn't actually make licensed Warner Brothers content. I think the only studio that they could actually sell would be NetherRealm.
oh, they are not selling that cash cow. That is the one that they're going to hold
I'm
on
just
to.
I'm just saying if the price was right, because I don't think any of the other, well, maybe the Lego company, they could sell them,
Yeah,
maybe. But I mean, no offense to, Rocksteady or what's the other, the Warner, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
But a lot of the other studios under the Warner Brother Games umbrella, they make licensed content, right? Are you gonna go buy the studio that makes Lord of the Rings games? Well, if you don't have the Lord of the Rings IP, they're kind of useless. You're gonna go buy the studio that makes, the Kill the Justice League game without the DC rights.
So here's my only concern slash reason why I don't think NetherRealm will be purchased
What's that?
is I don't.
Other than the fact that they make a crap ton of money.
Besides they make crap ton of money, that's usually tied to WB properties. Like WB owns the license for the Mortal Kombat movies and whatnot. They do like the Injustice games.
Hmm. True. However, NetherRealm owns the Mortal Kombat license, so if you were
That's
to
true.
buy NetherRealm, you would get Mortal Kombat.
You would get the
I
Mortal
mean,
Kombat
and if you didn't, you probably wouldn't buy them.
right. Uh,
But there's no way that Warner Brothers is going, or Discover, or whoever's actually going to be like the real
yeah.
like owner, the decision maker at the top, right? Um, there's no way that they are going to let go of the WB
No.
or DC IPs,
No.
right? So that lessens the value of some of those studios
And
in some respect, right?
and if you're looking at NetherRealm and you take away the DC factor that helps boost sales, their games are incredibly expensive to make and oftentimes are not as looked at as fondly in the FGC as the other games. They aren't as complex. They tend to be very 50-50 footsie based. Not a lot
Sure.
of, that you learn one combo stream and that's the stream you go to, that there's not a lot of diversity to the games. And if they're investing in Evo and wanting to make a spectacle of things, though I love Mortal Kombat, that's not really the game of Evo.
Sure. Sure. That's fair.
That would be my
That's
only
fair.
that would be my only concern with that. Now, another studio though, besides Capcom, that's smaller, if they're wanting to get into the fighting game thing even more, SNK.
I guess that's true. Um, doesn't the Prince of Saudi Arabia own as the SNK developer now?
They have a, if not a large stake, then a controlling stake, yes. But
Yeah,
everything has a price. Everything has a
which is
price.
insane.
And right now,
Yeah.
uh reviews are starting to come out for King of Fighters 15, and they're coming out very strong. Um
Okay.
Solid
Yeah, well,
gameplay.
yeah. It is
Um
owned by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. Wow. Oh my God.
yeah.
Largest shareholder.
Yeah. So that's another smaller fighting game dev that I think could also possibly uh, be on the
Sure.
table. Plus, you get a lot of legacy IPs with that as well. That
Mm-hmm.
could. Uh, okay, I remember the other one I was thinking of here that I think would be a big get for anyone. I'm not sure who's going to get them. It might even be Nintendo. This might be one for Nintendo.
Okay.
Way forward.
Who's that? What do they make?
They make the River City Girls games. They made what's the one that just came out? Hold on, let me get a list up here. Because they just make good games. Hold on.
Okay.
It's one of those things where I can tell it's getting late here because my brain.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, there's so many different studios out there.
Okay. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is a Nintendo up to a T here. The Shantae games,
Okay.
River City Girls. They made the most recent Ducktales remastered game. A Boy and His Blob. Uh, Let me pull up their website here as well because I feel like there's something else that was more recent.
Okay.
Uh, the Switch.
Question.
Yeah.
Question for you. Why would what's the play? Why for Nintendo if they were to acquire that? Because you mentioned Nintendo. Why
Uh,
would they acquire them? Do they have the quote unquote Nintendo DNA? Do
yes.
they?
I mean,
Okay.
that was the other game. I just remembered. I believe it was WayForward that they just partnered with for Advance Wars.
Oh, that's who's making that?
I think so. Hold on.
Okay. Yeah, because pretty much to be acquired by Nintendo, you pretty much have to make Nintendo games.
Yeah, that's made by WayForward.
Right, then it's a real possibility then.
Yep. And their big thing is style. So, like in the most
Sure.
recent direct, they were talking about how they're adding animations and voices to all of the COs, the commanding officers in that game that were never
Hmm.
there in the originals, and that's the way forward stamp. The Shantae games have a legacy on the Game Boy Color. I mean, that's one of the most expensive games you could ever buy is the Game Boy Color Shantae game.
Okay.
And it's
Okay.
just known for amazing platforming. If you're talking about a style and aesthetic, that is a Nintendo look, I think, that they would want to partner up with.
Sure. Sure. So another potential studio that's out there, because there aren't that many independent studios. Do you think that Remedy would be acquired? And by who? So let's look at let's circle back on that one.
Okay.
Let's talk about history. At one point in time, they had a very close relationship with Microsoft.
Alan Wake, Quantum Dreams,
Mm. And they kind of
the
do
Max Payne.
nowadays, right? With whatchamacallit. They're partnering on some game with Microsoft these days. I forget what
Oh,
it's called. Some of the X.
the Cross X or
Yeah, Crossfire.
yeah,
No,
Crossfire. Yeah, it's Crossfire.
the Crossfire.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
multiplayer game. Yeah, so
Hmm.
I
So
I would have said yes until Control happened. Control has been
mm,
big enough that I think they'll fend off and try to go stay on their own course for a while.
sure, and they have a pretty great deal with um. I think that they have some sort of partnership with Epic. Um, I think from like a Epic Game Studio front, because Epic sunk a ton of money into people that are willing to put games on their their PC store.
Uh,
So,
Not only are they paying money to put the games on the store, I got Control for free from the Epic Game Store.
see, there you go.
Yeah.
Just
So,
just to show up,
yep.
just to be a part of their ecosystem and their community.
Yep.
So, yeah, we
It will be
they
interesting.
might they might be able to stay independent.
They might be,
Maybe,
yeah. But then
maybe.
again, Moneybags Microsoft might go, we need single player games, and we got the money. So,
The
but
thing is, with both of the recent acquisitions, I mean, Bethesda was a year ago. Um, I don't know if they really have a single player problem anymore, especially with Bethesda. That was a ton of single player games.
I
And
I
they basically own every Western RPG studio besides CD Projekt.
so I'm going to disagree with you on only one factor here.
Hmm.
They are still missing the single player cinematic story series.
Yeah, true, but that's also, I mean, PlayStation kind of has the I don't want to say the monopoly on it, but I mean that's kind of what when you think of a PlayStation game, that's what you think of, right?
Right. But
Third person action adventure game, over the
Microsoft
shoulder.
Microsoft is going to want to change that perception because they don't want it to be synonymous with Sony. It doesn't have to be synonymous with Microsoft. It just doesn't.
Sure.
It just has to stop being synonymous with Sony. And I think they're going
I
to
mean,
make.
they're gonna try. I mean, they are bringing Perfect Dark back,
I think that's going to be more
and
shootery and less
I,
cinematic.
sure. What's weird about that game is it's basically being made by Crystal Dynamics,
Yeah,
which is a Square Enix studio. But
yeah. Who has a lot to prove after Avengers?
true. However, I mean, if they're making a single player game, I mean, I've played the Tomb Raider reboots,
But
and
Perfect Dark is not a single
the
player game. It is known for its multiplayer.
really. All right. Well,
It.
then
I mean, it
your
was.
your
It
point
was
your point still stands then.
it was the sequel to Goldeneye. You can still play Perfect Dark on the Xbox with some of the original Goldeneye levels, like the facility.
Hmm. Guess I didn't realize Perfect Dark is a rare game. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense. Fair. Well, then, I mean, the closest thing they've ever had to that was Remedy, right? When they were making,
I would
Alan Wake
I
and
would
stuff for them.
I would say the closest now is Double Fine because Psychonauts 2 came very close to that, I feel.
Yeah, it still feels like, and I mean, I'm not saying this to belittle the game. I'm really not, but we're
It
talking perceptions
it doesn't
here.
have the polish
And
level like Ratchet and Clank.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's still in many people's eyes is going to be looked on as, oh, that looks like an indie game. I know it's not. Obviously, it's owned by, I mean, they're owned by Microsoft now. They got
Right.
Microsoft money.
Right.
But that perception's
Yep.
is still going to be there.
Yep. Well, on that note, we'll kind of see what's going on this year, but I think that's a good point to call it tonight. Chris?
It's late, so
Yeah, it's late. We've already been going for close to an hour and a half. Chris, I appreciate you being on today. Listeners, let us know. Who do you think is next up for purchase? Who's not done this year? Or do you think it's all done? We're gonna wipe our hands of it. I don't think that's happening.
no. I mean, Jim Ryan said after they bought Bungie, there will be more.
Yep.
And I mean, Microsoft says that every time they buy somebody too. So
Yep. So
matter of time.
yep. So we'll have to keep waiting that. But in the meantime, game on.